The concert hall buzzed with anticipation as the arrogant pianist, Lucas, took his place on the grand stage. His confidence was almost unbearable, a smirk playing on his lips as he glanced around, clearly expecting admiration rather than competition. In the shadows, unseen by most, stood Emma, a young woman who had been blind since birth. Her fingers hovered over the piano keys with a calm precision, her mind attuned to every sound she had ever heard, every emotion she had ever felt. The room was filled with skepticism when she quietly stepped forward. Many whispered, doubting, her ability dismissing her presence as a mere novelty. But as Emma began to play, the arrogance in Lucas's eyes slowly turned to disbelief. Her music was not just notes. It was a story told through every keystroke, filled with raw emotion and undeniable passion. The melodies swirled around the audience like a warm embrace, silencing the room and capturing hearts. Lucas's pride crumbled, replaced by a growing realization that he was no match for her pure talent. The crowd, once ready to scoff, was now on their feet, applauding with awe and respect. Emma, though blind, was seeing far more clearly than anyone else in that room. Tears glistened in Emma's eyes as she finished the piece, tears not of sadness, but of triumph. The silence that followed was electric, charged with the power of a young woman who had fought every doubt, every insult, to stand tall and claim her rightful place. She had destroyed not just the arrogance of a rival pianist, but the barriers of prejudice and underestimation. Now she wasn't just the owner of the stage, she was a symbol of resilience, owning the bank of opportunities that life had once denied her. Her victory was not just musical. It was a heartfelt message to the world. Never underestimate the power of determination and the strength within. The moment Lucas's fingers faltered on the final note, the room erupted into stunned silence. His smirk vanished, replaced by a sharp glare aimed directly at Emma, whose calm expression never wavered. The audience shifted in their seats, caught between disbelief and awe. Whispers rippled through the crowd, some filled with admiration, others tinged with surprise that a blind girl could outplay the city's most celebrated pianist. Lucas's jaw clenched, his pride bruised in a way he hadn't expected. Yet Emma remained poised, letting the music speak louder than any words ever could. The surface reaction was a mix of shock, respect, and a hint of bitterness. But deep down, everyone knew this was only the beginning of a story much bigger than a piano duel. The shock that rippled through the audience was palpable, like a sudden gust of wind that unsettled every person in the room. People who had come expecting to witness Lucas's flawless performance now found themselves questioning everything they thought they knew. Emma's fingers had danced across the keys with a grace and precision that defied her blindness, weaving a melody so rich with emotion it seemed to reach deep into the soul of every listener. The whispers grew louder, expressions of disbelief tangled with genuine admiration. Lucas stood frozen for a moment, his pride shattered in front of an audience that once worshipped him. He clenched his fists, the heat of embarrassment burning in his cheeks. How could he have been beaten by someone who had never seen a single note written on a page? The arrogance that had carried him so far now felt like a heavy chain dragging him down. Yet, beneath the surface of his fury, a small, reluctant seed of respect began to take root. Emma, in contrast, was the picture of quiet confidence. She didn't need the applause or the shocked gasps to validate her talent. She knew who she was. Years of practice, sacrifice, and an unyielding belief in herself had brought her here. Her blindness had never been a weakness but a different lens through which she experienced the world. Every note she played was colored by the sounds she felt, the rustle of leaves, the laughter of children, the rhythm of life itself. Around her, the crowd was shifting. Some faces softened with empathy, others with newfound respect. People who had doubted her now saw not just a blind girl, but a musician whose soul spoke louder than sight ever could. Emma's victory was more than just a win over Lucas. It was a powerful reminder that true talent and heart can break down even the most stubborn walls of prejudice. The first layer of reaction was raw and intense, a mixture of disbelief, admiration, and the faintest hint of fear for what this young woman might accomplish next. Emma's fingers hovered over the piano keys, but her mind drifted back to the countless hours she had spent alone in her small room, learning to see music through sound and touch. She remembered the nights when the world outside was silent, and only the piano spoke to her, its keys like old friends guiding her through darkness. I may not see the world like others do, she thought, but I feel it in ways they never will. She recalled her mother's gentle voice, encouraging her despite the obstacles. You have a gift, Emma. Your blindness isn't a limit, it's your strength. Those words echoed in her mind, fueling her determination. She had learned to listen, not just with her ears, but with her heart. Every note held meaning. Every pause was a breath of life. Her mind flashed to moments of doubt, the sneers of classmates, the dismissive glances of strangers. But she never let their judgment drown out the music inside her. They don't understand what I have, she thought fiercely. But one day, they will. That day had come. As she prepared to play, the memories settled like a warm blanket, giving her strength and calm. In that moment, Emma was not just a blind girl playing piano, she was a force ready to shatter every expectation. As the final note lingered in the air, Emma's hands trembled slightly, the weight of the moment pressing down on her like a silent storm. Her chest rose and fell unevenly, a quiet tremor betraying the flood of emotions swirling inside. Though she had prepared for this moment countless times, nothing could fully brace her for the overwhelming mixture of relief, pride, and vulnerability. A single tear escaped, tracing a path down her cheek, one that no one could see but felt in the depths of her soul. For a brief second, a fragile smile flickered on her lips, a delicate mask she wore to hide the storm inside. It was not the confident smile of victory, but a soft, almost hesitant one. One born from years of struggle, isolation, and unspoken pain. Her body trembled not from weakness, but from the sheer intensity of what she had just achieved. The applause around her felt distant, like a faint echo through a thick fog. Emma's heart was pounding, her breath catching as she fought to steady herself. Though her face showed calm, her entire being was alive with the unspoken truth of years spent fighting to be seen, not just as blind, but as capable, talented, and worthy. The trembling hands and hidden tears told a story no words could capture. The silent victory of a soul that refused to be broken. Whispers began weaving through the crowd, subtle yet charged with curiosity. Who was this girl, really? How had she mastered a skill so many with sight struggled to perfect? Emma's story was a mystery wrapped in silence, one that invited more questions than answers. No one knew the full truth behind her quiet confidence or the shadows that lingered in her gaze. Rumors started to spread. Some said she was born into privilege, others whispered about a hidden past, full of pain and sacrifice. Yet Emma never spoke of herself. She let the music tell her story. Her blindness wasn't just a condition, it was a veil concealing layers of resilience no one had dared to explore. The mystery only deepened as people realized her talent was no accident. It was forged through a journey far more complex than anyone guessed. In the back of the room, Lucas's eyes narrowed, sensing there was more to Emma than met the eye. His arrogance faltered as he wrestled with a rising question. How much did he really know about her? The mystery surrounding Emma wasn't just captivating the audience, it was beginning to unravel the very foundation of his pride. Everyone waited breathlessly, eager to uncover the truth hidden beneath the surface. The first clue to Emma's hidden story came unexpectedly during a brief pause in the evening's program. As she stepped away from the piano, a worn, faded locket slipped from her pocket and fell softly onto the stage floor. The audience gasped quietly as the delicate piece caught the light, revealing an intricately carved design and a tiny, almost invisible photograph inside. Lucas, still reeling from his defeat, stooped down and picked up the locket, holding it, up for all to see. Whispers erupted among the crowd. This small, seemingly insignificant object hinted at a deeper past, something far removed from the image of a simple blind girl. The locket bore signs of age and wear, suggesting it had traveled through time and hardship alongside Emma. Emma's face remained composed, but a flicker of emotion crossed her eyes as she glanced at the locket in Lucas's hand. It was more than just jewelry. It was a key to her past, a silent testament to the battles she had fought long before this night. The audience leaned in, sensing that this was only the beginning of a story far richer and more compelling than the music alone. As the spotlight dimmed and murmurs rippled through the room, Emma's story began to unravel layer by layer, pulling everyone deeper into the mystery. Behind that fragile exterior was a life marked by struggles few could imagine. The locket wasn't just a keepsake, it was a symbol of a promise made long ago, a link to a family she barely remembered. "Let's go deeper," the whispers seemed to say, as memories surged beneath Emma's calm surface. She recalled the night she lost more than her sight, the night her entire world was shattered. It was then that the true depth of her strength began to form, forged in pain and resilience. The audience's eyes were glued to her, waiting for the revelation that would shatter their assumptions. Emma's fingers traced the edges of the locket, her voice steady but soft as she began to reveal the hidden truths piece by piece. This wasn't just a performance, it was a journey into the heart of a story that demanded to be told. The room held its breath, ready to dive into the depths of Emma's past, where secrets and courage intertwined in ways no one expected. The second clue appeared subtly, almost unnoticed, yet it carried a weight that would later prove crucial. During a quiet moment backstage, a faded photograph slipped from the pages of Emma's worn notebook, an image of a grand, imposing mansion surrounded by sprawling gardens. The edges of the photo were frayed, its colors faded by time, but the unmistakable silhouette of the estate hinted at a life far removed from the humble existence Emma had led. Lucas caught sight of the photo as he passed by and paused, a flicker of recognition flashing across his face. He had heard rumors about a lost heiress to a wealthy family, one who had vanished without a trace years ago. Could Emma be connected to that story? The photograph was a silent foreshadowing, a puzzle, piece hinting that Emma's past held secrets powerful enough to shake the very foundations of her present. The audience remained unaware of this clue, but for those paying close attention, the photo was a whisper of things to come, a foreshadowing of revelations that would turn the night into an unforgettable journey of truth, power, and redemption. Now, what no one expected was how Emma's quiet strength would ignite a fire that challenged everything around her. Just as the night seemed to settle into admiration and applause, a sudden announcement crackled through the venue. A live news alert revealing that Emma was not just any performer. She was the rightful heir to the very estate shown in that photograph. The Crowd gasped in stunned silence. Whispers turned to murmurs and murmurs to outright astonishment. Lucas's smug confidence crumbled as the reality hit him. Emma's story was far greater, more complex, and more powerful than anyone could have imagined. She wasn't just a blind girl who played the piano. She was a woman with a legacy that carried immense influence and untold riches. The atmosphere shifted instantly. What started as a night of competition and rivalry transformed into a revelation that stunned the world. Emma, once invisible to many, now stood center stage not only as a master musician, but as a woman whose identity would rewrite the rules of power and respect. No one expected the night to unfold this way, and the shock echoed deep in the hearts of everyone present. The room's energy shifted abruptly as the news spread like wildfire, but the real suspense lay beneath the surface, waiting to erupt. Emma's calm exterior masked a storm of emotions: pride, fear, and a deep-seated resolve that only those who truly understood her could sense. The twist wasn't just her identity. It was the revelation of a betrayal so profound it threatened to shatter everything she had rebuilt. Lucas, grappling with humiliation, found himself cornered not only by Emma's unexpected rise, but by whispers of a secret deal he had made years ago, one that involved Emma's family, and a betrayal that cost her dearly. The truth that emerged was darker than anyone imagined. Lucas's arrogance had blinded him to the very people he had wronged. As Emma stepped forward, the suspense grew thicker. She held the power now, but at a cost that weighed heavily on her heart. The twist was a reminder that success is rarely simple, and that behind every victory lies a story of pain, sacrifice, and courage. The audience was left breathless, caught between awe and anticipation, knowing the night's revelations were only just beginning to unfold. The air in the grand hall was thick with anticipation, the audience still buzzing from the shocking revelations. Emma stood at the center of the stage, her posture poised yet resolute, ready to face the next chapter of her journey. Behind the scenes, the pieces were falling into place. Old alliances tested, secrets coming to light, and a future that was as uncertain as it was promising. Lucas, stripped of his arrogance, retreated to a quieter corner, his mind racing to grasp the magnitude of what had just happened. The setup was clear, a battle not just for musical supremacy, but for justice, truth, and reclaiming what was rightfully Emma's. The stakes had never been higher, and every player in this story was about to be tested. Backstage, whispers of support and suspicion mingled. Friends and foes alike waited, watching the unfolding drama with bated breath. Emma's challenge was no longer just about proving her talent. It was about confronting the shadows of her past and embracing the power that came with her true identity. The stage was set for a confrontation that would change everything. Lucas's mind raced in chaos, his pride battered and his carefully crafted image crumbling. He replayed every moment, the sneers, the dismissals, the smug confidence he once held. And now, faced with Emma's undeniable strength, doubt gnawed at him like never before. Was he just a pawn in a larger game? Had his arrogance blinded him to the truth all along? His thoughts spiraled, caught between regret and a flicker of desperate hope to reclaim control. Emma's thoughts, in stark contrast, were a tempest of calm determination. Beneath her composed exterior, she wrestled with the weight of her newfound power and the scars of a past filled with pain and abandonment. She felt the sting of betrayal, but also the warmth of long-awaited justice. In this moment, her mind sharpened with clarity. This was more than a performance. It was her life's defining battle, and she was ready to fight with every ounce of courage she had. As the world watched, their inner worlds collided, one drowning in doubt, the other rising in strength. setting the stage for a confrontation that would reveal who truly deserved the spotlight. The tension in the room was palpable as Emma prepared to share the story that had been buried deep within her heart for so long. She took a slow breath, the silence amplifying every heartbeat, and then began to reveal the pieces of her past, how she lost her sight in a tragic accident, how her family was torn apart by greed and betrayal, and how she was left to fight. Alone against the odds, her voice, steady but charged with emotion, painted a vivid picture of resilience and pain, capturing the attention of everyone present. Each word pulled back the veil on the mystery, connecting the dots between her humble beginnings and the powerful legacy she was destined to reclaim. The room leaned in, hanging on every detail as the story unfolded, layer by layer, like a carefully woven tapestry. Lucas's face shifted from disbelief to shock as he realized the depth of his own mistakes. The truth Emma revealed wasn't just personal, it was a mirror reflecting the consequences of his arrogance and actions. The reveal built momentum, driving the narrative toward an inevitable climax that no one in the room would soon forget. The moment everything changed came suddenly, like a thunderclap breaking through the calm. As Emma finished recounting the darkest chapter of her past, she revealed a truth that stunned everyone. The very bank Lucas's family controlled was built on the ruins of her family's legacy. This wasn't just a battle of talent anymore. It was a fight for justice, for the reclamation of what was stolen from her. Lucas's confident facade cracked completely. The arrogance that once fueled him was replaced by a desperate scramble to defend a legacy built on lies. The room felt the weight of this turning point, the shift from mere competition to a deeply personal conflict charged with history and betrayal. For Emma, this was her inciting incident. The moment she no longer fought to prove herself but to right a profound wrong. Her determination ignited like a blazing fire, her goal now clear and unshakable. This breakpoint didn't just change the course of their story. It set the stage for a reckoning that would expose truth, test loyalties, and challenge the very foundation of their intertwined destinies. Emma's goal crystallized with fierce clarity: to reclaim her family's honor and legacy, which had been stolen by Lucas's family under the guise of power and wealth. She wasn't just fighting to prove her talent on the stage anymore. She was determined to dismantle the corrupt empire built on betrayal and injustice. Her mission was twofold. First, to expose the truth behind the deceit that had robbed her of her future, and second, to build a new path for herself, one where her abilities and integrity would be recognized and celebrated. This goal wasn't just about personal victory. It was about justice, healing, and restoring balance to a story that had been twisted for far too long. Every action she took from this point forward was driven by that unwavering purpose, fueling her with resilience and courage in the face of mounting opposition. The moment the truth hit Lucas was devastating. His carefully constructed world crumbled in an instant. Standing face to face with Emma, he saw not just a rival, but the embodiment of everything he had ignored and underestimated. His arrogance gave way to a painful realization. His family's success was built on lies and betrayal, and Emma was the living proof of those shattered dreams. Emma's eyes, steady and filled with both hurt and strength, held him accountable without a word. In that silence, Lucas felt the weight of his actions and the years of blind pride that had blinded him to the damage he caused. His heart raced with regret as he confronted the reality that he had been the villain in her story all along. This emotional confrontation was a turning point for both. Emma's resilience shone brighter, while Lucas grappled with shame and the possibility of redemption. It was a raw, unfiltered moment where past grievances collided with the hope for forgiveness, setting the stage for the battles yet to come. Lucas's world shattered completely in that moment. The weight of Emma's words crashed down on him like a tidal wave, and for the first time, his confident mask slipped away. His breath hitched, his hands trembled, and a storm of emotions, shame, guilt, anger, raged within him. He wanted to scream, to fight back, but the truth was undeniable. Tears welled up in his eyes, blurring his vision as memories of his family's ruthless climb to power flooded his mind. The lies, the betrayals, the sacrifices made at the expense of others, all of it came crashing down. His heart felt heavy with regret, and for a long moment, silence engulfed the room as he struggled to find words, any words, to defend himself. Emma watched quietly, her own pain mingling with a fierce sense of justice. Lucas's breakdown was not just a collapse of ego, but a pivotal moment where the walls he had built around himself began to crumble. It was raw, painful, and honest, a moment that would redefine both their paths forever. In the midst of Lucas's breakdown, Emma took a small, deliberate step forward. Her voice softened, filled with compassion despite the storm of emotions still swirling between them. "It's not too late," she said quietly. "We can choose a different path, one where truth and healing come before pride and power." Her words hung in the air like a lifeline, an invitation to rebuild rather than destroy. She wasn't offering mercy out of weakness, but extending a chance for redemption, for Lucas to become part of a new story, one of justice, forgiveness, and real strength. The room seemed to hold its breath as Lucas met her gaze, torn between the past he couldn't change and the uncertain future she was offering. That fragile moment of hope flickered, signaling that while the road ahead would be difficult, it was not impossible. Together they could rise from the ashes of betrayal and rebuild something far greater than either had imagined. Lucas's eyes searched Emma's face, looking for anger or hatred, but found only quiet strength and unexpected compassion. That moment cracked something deep inside him. The long-held bitterness and desire for dominance began to melt away. Instead of clinging to revenge or denial, he felt a stirring of humility and a genuine wish to make amends. Emma, too, shifted, from confrontation to connection. She realized that true victory wouldn't come from tearing Lucas down, but from rising above the cycle of pain and resentment. Her compassion became a powerful force, disarming the hostility that had fueled their conflict for so long. This compassionate shift didn't erase the past, but it opened a new door, a chance for healing, growth, and partnership. Lucas, once the arrogant pianist, now faced the possibility of becoming an ally rather than an adversary. Together, they could transform pain into purpose, proving that forgiveness and understanding were stronger than any grudge or rivalry. Emma's goal now was clear: to heal the wounds left by years of betrayal and misunderstanding, not just for herself, but for everyone caught in the tangled web of family secrets and pride. She wanted to build bridges where walls had been raised, to replace bitterness with empathy and resentment with understanding. Healing was not an easy path. It meant facing painful truths, admitting mistakes, and letting go of grudges that had weighed heavily on her heart. But Emma knew that only through forgiveness could she truly move forward and create a future free from the shadows of the past. Her mission was to inspire change, not just in Lucas, but in herself and those around them. Through patience, kindness, and unwavering strength, she sought to transform their broken story into one of redemption, trust, and genuine connection. The journey toward healing had begun, and with it came the hope of a new beginning for them all. Emma stood in the dimly lit room, her hands trembling as she pulled out a small, dusty box from the back of the closet. She hadn't expected to find anything there, but something deep inside had urged her to look again. The box was old, covered in faded floral patterns, and it seemed untouched for years. As she opened it carefully, a stack of yellowed papers and photographs spilled out, each one whispering secrets that had been buried long ago. Lucas watched her with a mixture of curiosity and unease, sensing the gravity of the moment, but unsure what revelations awaited. Emma's eyes scanned the documents quickly, and then slowed as she came across a letter with a familiar signature. Her heart pounded in her chest as she realized what it meant. This was not just a family secret, but a truth so profound it would change everything they thought they knew. The letter revealed that Emma was not simply the daughter of a forgotten relative, but the rightful heir to a legacy that had been stolen. It told of a betrayal so deep that it had been covered up by lies and manipulation for decades. As Emma read the words aloud, the room seemed to grow colder, the weight of the hidden truth pressing down on them both. Lucas's face paled, his eyes wide with shock, as the puzzle pieces of his family's history began to fit together in ways he never imagined. Emma's voice wavered, but she pushed on, revealing more letters and documents that exposed the extent of the deceit. It was clear now that the arrogant pianist had not only underestimated her, but had been part of the very machinery that tried to erase her existence. The truth wasn't just a revelation, it was a reckoning, a moment that shattered old narratives and demanded a new understanding. In that silent room, surrounded by the evidence of years of lies, Emma and Lucas faced a turning point unlike any before. The shock entry of this hidden truth didn't just disrupt their personal conflict, it threatened to unravel the entire foundation of their lives. With the past exposed and the future uncertain, they stood on the edge of a new reality, one where power, pride, and prejudice would have to be reckoned with, and where the true story finally had a chance to be told. Emma stepped back from the pile of revelations, her breath shaky but her eyes now filled with fierce determination. Lucas, still reeling from the shock, reached out instinctively, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. In that quiet moment, the tension that had built between them began to dissolve, replaced by an unexpected sense of safety. It was as if the room itself had become a sanctuary, a safe space where wounds could be tended and truths could be faced without fear. Despite the years of conflict and misunderstanding, Lucas's protective instinct kicked in. He saw not a rival or an adversary, but a person who had suffered deeply and deserved compassion. He gently guided Emma to sit down, offering her a glass of water and a reassuring smile. His voice was softer now, stripped of arrogance, showing a side few had ever witnessed. This was the first crack in the wall between them, where human kindness began to bridge the divide. Emma, though exhausted and vulnerable, felt a warmth she hadn't known she needed. The weight of the past still pressed down on her, but in Lucas's presence, she felt shielded from the harshness of the outside world. It wasn't just protection from physical harm, it was emotional sanctuary, a promise that no matter what had come before, they could face what was next together. In that moment, the room felt like a haven. The secrets, the betrayals, and the pain were still there, but they no longer defined the space. Instead, hope flickered quietly in the silence, a hope born from understanding, shared strength, and the courage to begin healing. Emma's tears, once held back by pride and fear, now flowed freely, met not with judgment, but with empathy. This safe space became the foundation for what would come next. It was a turning point where rescue was not about dramatic gestures or grand plans, but simple acts of presence, care, and unwavering support. Here, amid the broken pieces of their past, a fragile but real connection took root, one that promised that they wouldn't have to face the future alone. Lucas stood still, watching Emma tremble. Not from weakness, but from years of carrying pain alone. She had just revealed everything, the truth of who she was, the blindness she had hidden, the loss, the silent practice in the dark rooms of forgotten halls, the pain of being mocked not for her music, but for her existence. And yet, she didn't lash out. She didn't scream. She didn't demand justice, applause, or reparation. She simply sat, clutching the white-tipped cane beside her, breathing hard through quiet tears, her fingers still lightly touching the edge of the piano where she'd just played the piece that silenced the world. Lucas was stunned. The crowd was stunned. But not because of what she'd said, because of what she didn't say. She could have humiliated him in return, could have shouted all the things he'd once said to her in that audition room when he called her a burden and said blind people belonged anywhere but the stage. But instead, she turned her head in his direction and said softly, "I hope one day you hear what I was trying to say. Not just with notes, but with silence, too." That was the moment everything shifted. Not just the power in the room, but the weight of judgment that had defined their history. Lucas looked around, expecting cheers or mockery. He didn't know which would hurt more. But what he got was silence. Respectful silence. People were looking at her differently now. Not as a blind girl who dared to play, but as the only true artist in the room. One who held no bitterness in her chest. He felt his knees weaken, his arrogance cracking. And without realizing, he took a step forward, then another. Then he knelt in front of her. "I was wrong," he said, voice trembling. "About you. About everything." Emma nodded gently. "I know. That's why I never hated you." In that moment, the power shifted. Not because she conquered him, but because she freed him. Kindness had become the loudest sound on that stage. Lucas stood alone backstage, his fists clenched at his sides, pacing like a man lost in a desert of his own pride. The echo of Emma's performance still lingered in his ears, notes she played not to impress, but to speak. It wasn't just her skill that shook him, it was her grace. She didn't destroy him with revenge, she elevated herself through compassion. He stared into the dressing room mirror, but he couldn't recognize the face that looked back. The confident, untouchable pianist the world once cheered for now looked small, cracked by shame and confusion. "Why didn't she tear me down?" he whispered to himself, the guilt tightening in his throat. It would have been easier if she had. Rage, he could understand. Forgiveness? That was a foreign language. A knock at the door startled him. It was Grace, the event director, with a soft expression and 2 cups of tea. "She asked me to give this to you," she said, handing over the cup. Lucas stared at the label. Chamomile, good for humility. A joke? A lesson? Or both? He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. As he sat down, the battle inside him grew louder than the standing ovation that had followed Emma. Part of him wanted to walk away, to return to his world where fame protected him from feelings. But another part, a quieter, humbler voice, urged him to stay, to learn, to change. But change meant looking in the mirror and owning the damage he had caused. The truth was ugly. He didn't hate Emma because she was blind. He hated her because she played with more heart than he ever could, and it shattered his ego. Now, faced with her mercy, he had 2 choices: continue down the path of applause and emptiness, or begin the painful, honest journey of transformation. And that was the scariest performance of all. The auditorium lights dimmed once more as Emma stepped out into the empty hall, her cane tapping gently against the polished floor. The echo of her footsteps was the only sound, yet she felt watched, like eyes were still on her, judging, remembering, weighing her worth. She whispered to herself, "This isn't over." The battle wasn't just with music anymore. It was something deeper, something unfinished. Backstage, Lucas hadn't moved. The tea sat untouched beside him, but his mind was racing like wildfire. He remembered the way the crowd had stood for her, his crowd. But more than that, he remembered her last note, how it vibrated not just through the room, but through the fault lines in his soul. It wasn't performance. It was a message. Emma had no idea the board of directors from the National Philharmonic were in that audience. No one told her. No one warned Lucas either. But they'd seen what they needed, the rising sun, and what they whispered to one another before leaving the hall would change everything. "She's the future," one of them said, nodding toward her from the shadows. The suspense wasn't just in what would happen next. It was in how Lucas would respond. The world didn't know he had once rejected Emma from a conservatory scholarship, years ago mocking her blindness as a liability to the art. Now she was the headline. And Lucas? He was the question mark. Would he finally own up? Or cling to pride's illusion? Emma, unaware of his presence backstage, placed her hand gently on the center stage floor. She remembered coming here once, as a child, led by her mother's trembling hands, saying, "Feel it, Emma. Let your fingers teach you what your eyes can't." That stage became her compass. But tonight, her fingers trembled. Something was different. Something was about to break. Lucas stood just beyond the curtain, the stage still humming with the echo of Emma's final note. His hands were trembling, not with anger or defeat, but with something raw, shame. He had spent years building walls of arrogance to protect his genius, but tonight, those walls cracked, and through them flowed the truth he could no longer deny. Emma hadn't stolen his stage. She had rescued it from becoming soulless. He stepped onto the stage slowly, the hush of the empty hall amplifying each footstep. Emma, facing away, didn't hear him at first. When she turned, their worlds collided. Again, not in rivalry, but in silence thick with emotion. Lucas didn't speak right away. Instead, he placed a folded piece of paper on the piano she had just played. "For you," he whispered. His voice was fragile, unfamiliar even to himself. Emma's fingers felt the edges of the paper. She unfolded it slowly, each crease unfolding. A decade of silence, ego, and old pain. The letter was handwritten. Inside, it simply read, "I see you now. You taught me how to listen again. Let's play the next song together, your way." She didn't cry, but her breath caught like a note suspended in air, a peace offering, real, undeniable. Lucas took a deep breath and slowly sat beside her on the bench. No audience, no spotlight, just two people, one truth, and a piano between them. "You don't owe me anything," he added, not meeting her eyes. "But I owe you, more than I've ever owed anyone." Emma nodded gently, placing her hands on the keys, not to play, but to speak. "Then let's begin again, Lucas," she said softly. Their fingers met. His worn from years of perfection, hers calloused from learning without sight. Together they struck a single note, not a performance, not a competition, just a shared breath, a signal that the war was over. Peace had arrived, not in victory or loss, but in understanding. The story wasn't ending here. It was being rewritten, with both their names on the first page. Her fingers hovered above the piano keys, but the music didn't start. Instead, in her mind, a storm of memories erupted. She was 7 again, standing in a dusty church basement beside her mother, listening. The melody was soft, and her mother's voice, though worn, was full of grace and strength. It was the last time she ever heard her mother sing before the hospital stole her away. The next memory flickered fast. Dark, cold nights in the foster home, a tiny mattress on the floor. The broken radio that played static. Her only comfort was the shape of piano keys she had carved into her notebook. Every night she traced them with her fingers, pretending to play the music in her mind. She was blind, but her dreams had perfect clarity. She remembered the first time someone laughed at her. Daniel, the arrogant pianist. He called her a novelty act, said her blindness was her only appeal. But what hurt more was the crowd agreeing with him, their polite smiles hiding cruel eyes. That night she didn't sleep. Instead, she listened to old piano recordings her mother once loved. She made a vow. One day, the world would hear her voice through her hands. More flashes came. Her first audition, where the judges looked down at her folded cane. They hadn't even heard her play before whispering dismissively, but when her fingers hit the keys, the room changed. Her music silenced the noise, cleared the air, and drew tears from the harshest critic. Yet still, the acceptance letter never came. One moment she clung to tightly, meeting Eleanor, the retired music teacher. Eleanor found her, performing in a subway tunnel soaked by rain, hands frozen. Instead of pity, Eleanor gave her a piano, a broken one, but still music to her. For the first time, someone believed without conditions. "Play like the world needs your sound," Eleanor whispered. "Because it does." Her heart waged a silent war between bitterness and grace. Every note she played was a battle cry against the pain Daniel caused. Yet forgiveness felt like a distant shore, fogged by years of hurt and pride. She wanted to accept her journey, but the scars were stubborn reminders. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his mocking smile, challenging her worth. The nights were hardest when memories crashed like waves against fragile resolve. She questioned if she could ever rise above the shadows Daniel cast. Could she forgive the man who belittled her talent and spirit? Or was acceptance a faraway dream too heavy for her wounded soul? Her fingers trembled over the piano, searching for the courage she'd misplaced. Slowly, she realized that forgiveness wasn't for Daniel. It was for her own freedom. She imagined a world where the past no longer dictated her melody. In that vision, pain transformed into strength and anger melted into peace. It wasn't easy, and every day was a new struggle to let go. But with every breath, she edged closer to the light beyond the darkness. A letter arrived, unexpected. A note from Daniel, filled with regret and apology. Her mind spun with conflicting emotions, anger, doubt, and a flicker of hope. Could she truly forgive him? Could she accept his remorse as genuine? The answer lay deep within her heart, where music had always been her guide. For now, she chose silence, holding space for healing to unfold slowly. Forgiving didn't mean forgetting or inviting pain back into her life. It meant reclaiming her power and composing her own story anew. She played with renewed purpose, the notes no longer weighted by resentment. In those melodies, she found the courage to embrace both her past and future, and in that acceptance, Her soul began to soar beyond every barrier. The grand hall was packed, every eye fixed on the piano stage where Lily stood, her fingers poised over the keys. Whispers rippled through the crowd, buzzing with doubt and curiosity about the blind girl who dared challenge the arrogant pianist Daniel. As the first note escaped, silence fell like a curtain, thick with anticipation and disbelief. Lily's music wasn't just sound. It was a raw, powerful story that grabbed hearts and refused to let go. Daniel, watching from the side, clenched his jaw, knowing this performance would change everything. As the final chord echoed through the hall, a hush settled over the crowd, broken only by a sudden gasp from the audience. Lily slowly turned, a quiet smile on her lips, and reached into her pocket. From it, she pulled out a small folded photograph, worn and creased from years of being hidden away. The room leaned in, curiosity burning in every gaze. "This," Lily began softly, her voice steady despite the trembling inside, "is a picture of my father." The image showed a younger man sitting beside Daniel, their faces close, smiles genuine and warm. Murmurs rippled as the connection dawned. Daniel wasn't just a rival, he was family. Daniel's face paled, eyes darting to the photo, then to Lily. The arrogant mask cracked, revealing a flood of guilt and regret. The truth hit like a tidal wave. Daniel had abandoned not just the competition, but his own blood. Lily's voice grew stronger, her story unfolding. How she had been left, alone, how her blindness was a challenge she met with fierce determination, and how Daniel's neglect haunted her every step. The audience sat captivated, the emotion raw and palpable. In that moment, the confrontation transformed into catharsis. Daniel stepped forward, tears shimmering as he whispered, "I'm sorry." But Lily, with grace and strength, offered more. Then forgiveness. She offered a chance to rebuild, to heal the wounds time had deepened. The stage wasn't just hers anymore. It was theirs. Together they bowed to the stunned crowd, a symbol of redemption, reconciliation, and the unbreakable bond of family. Lily's chest heaved as the weight of years of pain and silence finally shattered in that moment. The room seemed to hold its breath as she stood there, the floodgates of emotion breaking free, tears spilling down her cheeks, trembling hands clutching the photograph tightly. The anger, the loneliness, the hurt she had bottled up exploded outward, raw and unfiltered. Daniel's eyes filled with tears too, a mirror of regret and sorrow reflecting back at her. His voice cracked as he tried to speak, but words fell short against the tidal wave of emotions raging between them. The audience was silent, caught in the powerful storm of vulnerability laid bare on the stage. Lily's sobs turned into a fierce, determined declaration. She was not a victim, not anymore. The pain had forged her into a force unstoppable, a woman who had risen from neglect and betrayal, stronger than anyone had expected. That emotional eruption wasn't just a breaking point. It was a breakthrough. The crowd was moved beyond applause, witnessing not just a performance, but a soul laid open, a story of deep wounds healing in real time. In that charged silence, a new chapter began, one built on truth, forgiveness, and an unshakable will to reclaim the life she deserved. Just as the tension seemed unbearable, the auditorium doors creaked open, and a figure stepped inside. Emily, Lily's childhood friend, someone the audience had barely seen until now. Her eyes were fierce, her presence commanding yet gentle. She moved swiftly to Lily's side, offering not just comfort, but an unspoken promise of unwavering support. Emily had always believed in Lily's strength, even when Lily doubted herself. She had fought battles behind the scenes, quietly confronting those who tried to undermine Lily, gathering evidence of Daniel's past mistakes and neglect. Her loyalty was a lifeline, a beacon in the storm of betrayal and heartache. Whispers spread through the crowd as Emily revealed truths that no one had expected. Details of Daniel's hidden regrets and the sacrifices Lily had made in silence. She wasn't just an ally, she was a catalyst for change, a reminder that sometimes the fiercest battles are won not alone, but together. Daniel's posture shifted, caught off guard by this new force rising beside Lily. The arrogant pianist now faced a united front. Lily's indomitable spirit backed by Emily's fierce determination. In that pivotal moment, the scales began to tip. The story was no longer just about rivalry or betrayal. It was about the power of friendship, resilience, and the unexpected heroes who step forward when hope seems lost. As the tension thickened, Emily reached into her bag and pulled out an old, worn envelope weathered by time but sealed with a promise. With steady hands, she handed it to Lily, who hesitated for only a moment before breaking the seal. Inside was a tape recorder and a stack of faded photographs, each one a piece of a puzzle long hidden. Lily pressed play on the recorder, and a familiar voice filled the room. Daniel's voice, raw and unguarded, confessing moments of regret, harsh words, and the truth about the arrogance that had blinded him for so long. The recording revealed private conversations where Daniel admitted to mistakes, moments of vulnerability he had tried desperately to hide. The photographs showed a different side of their story, snapshots of kindness from Lily that no one had seen, moments where she had quietly supported Daniel, even when he had turned his back on her. The images captured tears wiped away in secret, sacrifices made without recognition, and the slow, painful buildup of pain beneath the surface. As the confession played, the room fell silent, the weight of truth settling heavily on every heart. Daniel's face paled, no longer able to hide behind pride or arrogance. This tape was a mirror reflecting not just his faults, but the humanity in his failures. For Lily, this evidence was more than proof. It was liberation. The confession shattered illusions, broke chains, and opened the door to a new reality where truth could finally set them both free. Lily's hands trembled as she set the recorder down, her breath catching in her throat. The room seemed to hold its breath with her. Slowly, tears began to well up in her eyes, soft at first, then spilling over like a river breaking through a dam. Her body shook, a mix of exhaustion, relief, and pain flooding through her veins. The years of silence, the weight of betrayal, and the burden of carrying a truth no one believed. Everything crashed down in a wave of raw emotion. She let out a quiet sob, her face twisting into a fragile smile, trying to mask the hurt but unable to stop the tears that betrayed her strength. The audience sat frozen, witnessing not just a moment of vulnerability, but a powerful release, the collapse of walls built too high for too long. Daniel looked on, his own eyes glistening as guilt and regret took hold, seeing for the first time the real cost of his arrogance. Lily's collapse wasn't defeat. It was the breaking open of a new chapter, a painful but necessary step toward healing and redemption. The tears spoke louder than words, telling a story of resilience born from pain, and the beginning of a journey neither of them could ignore anymore. Months passed since that emotional night, and life took a turn neither Lily nor Daniel had dared to imagine. The pain of the past still lingered, but it no longer held them captive. Instead, it became a foundation, solid and unshakable, for something new and hopeful. Lily, once ignored and underestimated, now stood at the center of a vibrant community that embraced her talent and spirit. She had transformed the very stage Daniel once dominated, owning it with grace, humility, and undeniable skill. Her journey from silence to strength inspired countless others who had faced similar struggles. Daniel, humbled and changed, had not only sought forgiveness, but had become a champion for compassion and second chances. He used his influence and resources to support young artists like Lily, creating opportunities where arrogance once ruled. His redemption was not just personal. It became a beacon of hope for those who believed people could truly change. Their shared story, once fractured by pride and pain, now wove together threads of understanding and mutual respect. The bridge between them was rebuilt, not to erase the past, but to honor the growth it sparked. In this new life, the stage was no longer just a place of competition. It was a symbol of unity, resilience, and the power of kindness to heal even the deepest wounds. Lily and Daniel's story reminded everyone watching that sometimes the greatest victories come not from defeating others, but from conquering the battles within. Lily's goal had always been simple yet profound: to reclaim her voice, her dignity, and her rightful place, not just on the stage, but in a world that had long dismissed her. After years of silence and struggle, her ultimate mission became clear: to find redemption for herself, and to offer it to those who had wronged her, proving that forgiveness holds greater power than revenge. Rescue came not just in the form of saving her career, but in freeing her spirit from the chains of doubt and pain. Each note she played was a step toward healing, a declaration that she was no longer a victim, but a survivor with strength beyond measure. The reunion, unexpected and deeply emotional, was with Daniel. What began as a clash of pride and prejudice evolved into a shared journey of growth and understanding. Together, they confronted their past mistakes, finding common ground in their mutual desire to heal and move forward. Lily's quest for redemption was not just about personal triumph, but about breaking cycles of judgment and cruelty, showing that even in darkness, there is light waiting to be found, often in the most unexpected places and people. Life after. Healing settled into a new rhythm for Lily, one filled with quiet confidence and deep fulfillment. No longer defined by her struggles or the shadows of her past, she embraced each day as an opportunity to inspire and uplift others. Her music carried a richer, more authentic emotion, born from pain, resilience, and hope. Daniel, too, found peace in this new normal. Freed from arrogance and regret, he dedicated himself to being a better person, both on and off the stage. The rivalry that once consumed them transformed into a powerful partnership rooted in respect and shared purpose. Together, they built a community where talent and kindness were celebrated equally. Audiences no longer saw just a blind girl or an arrogant pianist. They witnessed two souls who had endured, grown, and risen above. Their lives were not without challenges, but the scars they carried were reminders of the battles fought and won. Healing was ongoing, but it was also beautiful, a testament to human strength and the possibility of new beginnings. In this new normal, Lily and Daniel were no longer prisoners of their pasts. Instead, they were architects of a future where compassion and courage led the way, showing everyone that true victory comes from within. Some bridges, once scorched by anger and betrayal, found their way back to life through patience and forgiveness. Lily and Daniel, despite the wounds they carried, chose to rebuild with grace rather than burn with spite. Their past mistakes became lessons, not weapons. They reached out, mending ties with those who had doubted or hurt them, understanding that resentment only prolongs pain. The old bridges to family, friends, and even themselves were reforged stronger, built on honesty, humility, and acceptance. Yet, not every bridge was meant to be restored. Some connections, toxic and destructive, were let go gently, with respect, for the lessons they taught but without the desire to reopen old wounds. This graceful balance between rebuilding and releasing became their secret to peace. It allowed them to walk forward unburdened, carrying the wisdom of the past, but living fully in the present. No matter how deep the wounds or how dark the past, kindness and forgiveness have the power to heal even the most broken hearts. True strength isn't about winning battles with others. It's about conquering the fears and doubts within ourselves. When we choose empathy over judgment and grace over anger, we open doors to new beginnings and unexpected friendships. Remember, every act of compassion can rewrite a story, transform a life, and inspire the world around you. Hold on to hope, because your greatest triumph is often just one kind moment away.